Hi everyone, and thank you for joining us for today's webinar, Engage Smarter, Close Faster, Add a Human Touch to ABM, with our Marketo LaunchPoint partner PFL and our mutual customer InsideSales. We have just a few housekeeping notes before we get started. First, this webinar will be recorded. The slides and the recording will be sent to you after the webinar. We'd love to have you ask us questions, so please feel free to enter your questions in the chat. There will be a Q&A section at the end of the webinar. If you're posting to social, we're thrilled to have you do that. Please make sure to use the hashtag MarketingNation or tweet the handles at Marketo or at PFL.com. Now I'd like to introduce today's speakers in the webinar. We have Daniel Gaugler, who's the VP of Marketing at PFL, and TJ Nokleby, Manager of Demand Generation at InsideSales. And with that, I'd like to turn things over to Daniel.
Thanks, Janet. I'm Daniel, Vice President of Marketing at PFL, as Janet said, and I'm really excited to be here today with the Marketing Nation to talk about how we can create marketing that our prospects actually enjoy getting, and ABM, two topics I'm very, very passionate about. First off, I'd like to make everyone a little jealous of where we're located. We're located in Montana, just a stone's throw from the Yellowstone River, 50 miles from Yellowstone National Park, and world-class skiing. So if you're ever in the area, feel free to come in and say hi. PFL provides technology solutions that drive engagement with your prospects and customers. And we do that by helping you add a new channel. Some may say it's an old channel, but we see it as a new channel to your marketing, and that's dimensional mail. And beyond technology that enables you to do that, we also do print, mail, and fulfillment to help you execute on those multi-channel campaigns extremely easy. But enough about us. Let's talk about account-based marketing. It's definitely been the buzzword of 2016. I think we're going to see it's a buzzword in 2017. And in 2018 and 19, we're going to see it as this is the new way we do marketing. And while account-based marketing really focuses on an account, hence the name, one thing that's really important to remember, and I want to really make clear in this presentation today, is that we're still marketing to people at these targeted accounts. And it's common sense to think that people generally prefer to be treated like a person, right? And so today we'll talk about how we can create these personalized touches with our ABM campaigns that are a little more human and create engagement with our prospects. I'll start by sharing best practices, and then I'll hand it off to our customer TJ from InsideSales to share their case study and how they're doing this in the real world. So first, I'm going to talk a little bit about why you should consider adding a new channel to your ABM campaigns or your marketing automation campaigns. And not only does Tactile Send get delivered to a different inbox than that inbox you're trying to avoid right now as you're watching this webinar, I hope, but direct mail is tangible, and it gives you a sense of something real. And it brings your brand to life, and it stimulates different senses than our digital marketing counterparts. And this experience is what makes this interaction more memorable. And on this recent technical paper about neuroscience, and don't worry, I'm not going to go too deep into brain science because most of that is way over my head, but the study showed that interacting with something physical incites different areas of our brain. The key takeaways are that these physical interactions leave a deeper footprint in our brain, a deeper memory, and they drive more emotional processing around the marketing piece. And this happens because direct mail engages part of the brain that has to do with visual and spatial information. And this suggests to us that the physical material is more real to us and more real to your brain. So it has a meaning and a place with us. So enough with the neuroscience, and back to marketing. If you're like me, you probably don't find yourself endlessly checking your email hoping that some stranger just sent you an email, which is why email for marketers has become a real challenge, particularly in ABM, because many times you're trying to engage people who have no idea who you are. They may have vague brand familiarity, but they don't know you. And even if you've done the research and created a super personalized email, the odds are stacked against you. and it's highly unlikely that your email won't get opened, let alone read. And it's just so easy for emails to get ignored or deleted if the recipient has never engaged with you before. Remember, people get hundreds of emails a day. Contrast that to your reaction when you see a FedEx package on your desk. I know for me, I can't wait to open it. Sometimes I'm intentionally late to a meeting because I got a package on my desk. My 2-year-old daughter feels the same way. She gets super excited when I say, let's go check the mail. Checking the mail is fun. She loves to interact with the envelopes, and curiosity of what's inside really drives that engagement. And most people are lucky to get even a single package a week, so the likelihood of them opening and engaging with your direct mail piece is extremely high. So imagine adding that same level of personalization that you put into that personalized email and delivering that to your prospects in a very tactile touch. And then following it up with a personalized email and further communication throughout multiple channels. The odds of us creating engagement when we do that go up substantially. Okay, so we've talked about how direct mail can create engagement and be more memorable. So how does this fit into ABM? If you're thinking about launching an ABM campaign, it's important to think about what I call the stuck points. And some of the most common stuck points that we hear from our clients are just getting that initial engagement. And so you can think about using a tactile piece to warm up an account, not just a lead, and then start the conversation. Another common stuck point we hear is creating any urgency on those stuck deals, that now is the time to take action. How do you get the attention and deliver that value point that you see to that client to create that urgency in that organization? And another major stuck point we see is you have an advocate or a champion within the organization, but they're not very vocal and they're not very loud right now. So how do you really get those internal advocates and champions in an organization to engage other people? And a tactile sense can be used as a conversation starter to really start those conversations. Those are 3 common stuck points that we see quite frequently, and the tactile touch helps a lot with. But you can think about how you can send a dimensional mail piece to move metrics by getting the prospect's attention at any stage of your funnel, whether that's driving new leads to re-engage or accelerating the pipeline all the way back to advocacy again. So we've discussed that direct mail alone can create stronger connections with prospects because of its nature. So let's discuss how we can get the most out of this new channel. Just like in digital marketing, we've learned that personalization can be a multiplier. The same applies when you're doing direct mail or dimensional mail sends. If we can improve the relevance of what we send through personalization and timing, it dramatically improves our results. You might be asking yourself, so how can you scale super high levels of personalization? First thing I'd like to mention is if you use a platform like Marketo, it can really help you leverage all that existing data that you have on your prospects. And from there, you can take that data to define personas that will help drive these personalizations. We'll go a little more detail on that later. One other pro tip when you're thinking about creating these personas is not to just target the decision makers. Buying from influencers is crucial as well, and the shareable nature of tangible marketing collateral can help kickstart that conversation in the account instead of at the lead level. So when you're looking at this personalization, you're thinking about what you should send, you really need to think of this as a blank canvas. You not only have one dimension to work in, you have 3 dimensions to work in. And you all actually can add a 4th dimension of touch, or sometimes even a 5th dimension of smell to these physical pieces. Or sound is even possible too. We've seen that as well. Everything can be dynamic based on the data to make the piece more impactful. And we use that by using variable content and images that will resonate with the company and the person you're targeting. And don't forget the timing. So one of the benefits of using a marketing automation platform is having that data feedback in real time. Marketo does a great job of this, helping us identify behavioral triggers to also determine when we should send it to improve that relevancy as well. A couple examples of this is you can trigger the send of a meeting maker package to decision makers when your account reaches a certain score threshold or a certain engagement threshold. Or you can trigger the send of a printed guidebook when a target prospect visits a specific product page on your website. Think about whether it's web interactions or whether it's interactions with sales, how you can use that behavioral interaction to improve the way your brand communicates with your customer. So the other key to really great ABM is personalization. But scaling this is where we see many marketers get hung up. How do I personalize for every account at the scale I need to? With the limited resources I have, marketers can get bogged down and say, this is really, really hard. So here's the trick. Let's use our personas. There's obvious groups of personas like role and industry, title, things like that. But there's many other aspects you can use to group personas together to improve engagement with your marketing. One of those is a personality persona. As a marketer, most of the unsolicited emails in my inbox all have the same common theme. They talk about ROI or attribution or technology, all of the topics which I care about immensely, but it has become very routine. But if you can be more human and something that appeals on a personal level and also speak to the business issue which you help address, you're much more likely to create an emotional connection between your prospect and your brand. And we come off as more human, not just as robots trying to say, more ROI, get better ROI with this, or whatever your value prop might be. So you can use information from sales conversations and social profiles to identify the things that the prospect enjoys, whether it's food or outdoors activities or travel. And so when you include that sort of thing in your package, the surprise and delight that they get when they receive that, and you cut through that digital clutter, you connect on a personal level, and you deliver value. And when you couple that with a clear call to action, it triggers a response. In fact, there's research that shows that people who receive a package are 10 times more likely to act when asked for something in return. So by using personas to segment your ABM targets, you can scale the strategy and deliver levels of engagement you may have never seen before. So I've talked a lot about this new channel, tactile marketing automation, and how it can be an integral component of your campaign. But I also want to note it's just a piece. And this study by InfoTrends does a great job of illustrating why we need to be thinking about this across all of our channels and using all these different channels to trigger a better response and get the most from your ABM campaigns. And so you should never just send a direct mail by a send. You should coordinate it with your other digital efforts, including email, using AdBridge with Marketo is a great tool, and also your sales process to engage your prospects. This way, your prospects get a consistent set of messages across all the channel and help them progress through the path to purchase. So I think you guys get the point of how this new channel, tactile marketing automation, can be used. I'd like to now introduce TJ from Inside Sales. He's running an awesome multi-channel ABM campaign, and let him kick it over to him so he can share how he's doing it.
All right. Hey, thank you so much, Daniel, and thanks to Marketo as well for inviting me to speak. I am super stoked to be here today. A little bit about myself. Like I said, my name is TJ Nokleby. I run a good portion of the demand gen efforts over here at Inside Sales, and more specifically running a good chunk of our ABM campaigns. And a little bit about Inside Sales. Inside Sales, we're the industry's leading predictive sales acceleration platform built on Neurolytics, our artificial intelligence engine that essentially helps your team sell more. So now we got the introductions out of the way. I wanted to jump into kind of the meat of this presentation. And today, instead of going through tips and tricks, which I will share throughout the presentation, I actually wanted to walk you through an ABM campaign that we ran a few months ago that technically is actually still running. I felt that would be the best way to illustrate how we arrived at selecting accounts, how we figured out the different pieces that we would send, the campaign as a whole, and then go over some of the successes that we've experienced. And also I'm going to be focusing on, in this specific campaign, this campaign was focused towards the enterprise or EBU. So a lot of the tips and tricks and things that that our team was using was more appropriate for the enterprise. And so, if you're doing an ABM campaign for maybe mid-market or SMB, it might be a little bit different. So just keep that in mind as I present. So here we go. So when you're starting your ABM campaign, it's important to start with the who, right? That's account-based marketing. You're figuring out the accounts that you want to go after. And like Daniel said, within those accounts, you're going after individuals. And so one thing that I felt like we did a really good job on is figuring out the personas of the individuals that we wanted to hit at those accounts. And we partnered very strongly with sales. And you're going to hear me say this throughout the presentation, but it's important to have sales and marketing alignment, especially when you're doing these enterprise or EBU ABM campaigns. This might be your only opportunity to have a campaign to these specific accounts. In the instance of inside sales, this was targeted towards Fortune 500 companies, and so it's really important that you get it right. And so when we partnered with our sales team, we determined the different accounts and the different budget, how much we wanted to spend on each account, and then we spent a good amount of time of going through the personas of the different contacts at each account. And we based this off of previous deals of what some of the AEs said, hey, these are the specific people we need to hit. And then also we ran it through some of the tools that we have at Inside Sales to determine those specific personas to go after. And for this particular campaign, we actually focused on one of our products called HD Forecast. It's a predictive forecasting tool. And we determined CFO, CRO, CIO, sales ops, VP of sales. These were all the types of personas that we wanted to go after. And once we figured out those personas, that's where we went and created the campaign. And as you can see here, there's a little screenshot saying, "Don't be blindsided." The campaign was based around this football theme of the CRO or the head of sales is more or less the quarterback of their sales organization. And forecasting can sometimes be like trying to play football blindfolded or lead your team blindfolded. They're given sales forecasts that are inaccurate. They don't understand how they got there. And so that was the pain point that we were talking to. And then the entire campaign, all the content based around this campaign cascaded from that football theme. And one thing I wanted to point out is that as you're building the campaign, with those different personas, you're going to build different content to those different personas because, say, the CFO compared to the sales ops, they're going to have different pain points, and in this instance for sales forecasting. And so we wanted to make sure that we took the time to build the content out to talk to that specific job description or job title. So that way you're selling a solution to their specific problem and not just kind of this overarching problem that might not apply to different job titles. Then you jump into the how. And I'm going to jump into the tactile piece more specifically a little bit later in the presentation. But we integrated cross-channel programs. And like I said, we're catering the content to the personas. But one thing, too, that when we were creating the campaign is different mediums to those personas. And what I mean by that is, like Daniel mentioned earlier, email doesn't get through to certain people. And if you're going after these really high-touch individuals like CEO, CFO, CRO, an email might not get through to them. And so when we built out the campaign, we decided, all right, let's focus a lot of our more expensive or nicer direct mail pieces at the higher personas, and then lower down, maybe they won't get a direct mail piece, or they'll get a different direct mail piece. We'll focus on email and different channels. And while you're putting this all together, really take the time to create the campaign the right way. And what I mean by that is really take the time to create the content for those personas, really partner with sales and your entire marketing organization to put together a really compelling campaign. We actually spent off the top of my head, but we spent probably a month or so really putting this campaign together, building different ebooks, white papers, video content, so on and so forth. And so really take the time to do it right. And with this campaign, we actually ran a 6-week cadence, and the different mediums, cross-channel stuff that we put together was dimensional mail, email. We had targeted display ads, social, and then phone cadence set up for our SDRs and AEs. And so this brings us to the tactile piece. And this was the crux of the campaign. This is probably the most important part, and I think where we really nailed it. The rest of the content I thought was great, but this tactile piece was pretty rad. And this is fun. I mean, ABM is fun. This is like, I got really stoked about this part of the campaign. I spend most of my career in digital marketing, and you don't do a lot of direct mail. And so this is really fun to put this together. And the question or the problem that we foresaw or we came across was, what do you get a CEO or CRO of a Fortune 500 company? You'll see different examples in ABM where you'll send maybe like an Amazon Echo or a remote control car or a bottle of wine, you know. And I think these are all great ideas, but it might not work for these high-level execs at these Fortune 500 companies. The ones that we were going after, they could buy as many Amazon Echoes as they need. And so our approach was to put together a tactile piece that really tied into the campaign rather than trying to get them some gift. And then also, I want to caveat that with, don't be too cute. And what I mean by that is I got a package the other day, and it was like an ABM campaign, and there was nuts in it, which were great. They were really good, but it was the card was like, we're nuts about inside sales or something like that, some pun or something. And I was like, what does this have to do with this company? And so that, you know, it might work for you guys, and you know, take it, you know, how you will, but really take the time to be creative and try to have that tactile piece tied to your specific campaign. So drum roll, please. This is the tactile piece, or one of them that we arrived on. And with that football theme, we arrived at sending a branded football to either the CEO or CRO of each of the accounts that we picked. And accompanying the football, there was a personal note from either our CRO or our CEO. And that's something I want to touch on as well, is really we found a lot of success at Inside Sales of leveraging our executives. So it means a lot more than some random AE sending them a package. When you have a personal note from your CEO or from your CRO, they just responded a lot better with that. And something that was neat as well is we actually, Steve Young, everyone knows who's Steve Young, he's actually on our advisory board at Inside Sales and a good friend of our CEO. And he was gracious enough to actually sign a good chunk of those footballs. So about a third of the campaign accounts in the campaign actually received a signed football from Steve Young. So talk about a tactile piece that really pops, and it's also something that you can't really just go out and buy. And so we were lucky in that way. Obviously, those listening and watching this webinar can't all get Steve Young to sign a football or a piece of content, but really be creative and see how you can leverage different relationships in that way. And jumping into the campaign flow, I'm obviously not going to walk through every little piece, but with that 6-week cadence, it was a mix of email, tactile pieces, and what was really fun with this campaign is leveraging Marketo and PFL. With the tactile pieces, when you actually mail them out, PFL allows you to trigger that all from Marketo. So probably most listeners here are familiar with your smart campaigns, different programs. It made it really easy to do that. You're not sending an order form to PFL with a bunch of addresses saying, hey, send these packages out. You are controlling that from your end. You're putting together a smart list, and you're sending out those specific pieces. And with that comes all the great features of Marketo, of being able to trigger certain campaigns, trigger notifications. And so when we built this campaign out, we wanted to make sure that all of our SDRs and AEs knew exactly what was happening with the campaign. So when the football was delivered, for instance, they received an email because with PFL they have all the tracking with those different direct mail pieces. And the AE knew, oh, they just received the football. And we had an automated campaign set up as well that they would get an email from the CEO saying, hey, I noticed you just got the football. I just want to reach out if you have any questions, let me know. We had a huge success with that. I think we had a 50% open rate on those emails that came from the CEO or our CRO, once again leveraging those executives. However, it allowed the AEs and SDRs to know how to follow up from there. So throughout the campaign, we had different white papers. We also had another tactile piece where we had these little mini footballs, branded footballs. And the idea is that we just wanted to get our logo around the office and for people to really know who Inside Sales was. And so this ran over about a 6-week period, different content based on different personas. And I feel like we really hit one out of the park. It was really successful. Some of the results to share is in that 6 weeks, we created 2x the pipeline of what we sold for that specific product the year before. So in 6 weeks, we created a ton of pipe. And based off of that pipe and our close rates, we're out of 15x ROI. Our sales cycle is a little bit longer, and so this campaign is it's still running. We've had a few closed deals that are huge deals, but I think any marketer out there, if you're getting 15x, you're pretty excited. And so ABM does work for those that are just launching your first campaign or maybe didn't have success before. It really does work if you put the campaign together correctly. And a few examples of that success, besides the ROI numbers, we had with the campaign when we sent the football, the automated email that came from our CRO, the individual actually responded and said, hey, I'm not familiar with inside sales, but this campaign got my attention. I'd love to talk to you. Here's my number, da-da-da. I mean, just basically handed us, on a silver platter. And it was a huge win. It was a huge account as well. And then we had a few other meetings where the AE would walk into the meeting and they would put the football on the desk and say, hey, you got my attention. We actually had even other, we had customers, because we actually did a little bit of expansion in this campaign as well, where they brought the football out. And so it was really cool. And I'm not saying that what we did is like super amazing. We sent them a football. But as Daniel said, that's the power of the tactile marketing pieces. And so we had a lot of success with this campaign. And just to kind of wrap it up, and the key learnings that we had over here at Inside Sales is, first off, again, sales and marketing alignment is key. You need to partner with your sales team, leverage their knowledge, make sure that you have buy-in from all the stakeholders within the organization, so that when you launch the campaign, everyone is on board. I can't stress that enough. Second is take the time to create a compelling campaign. We partner with our creative team, our content team. I mean, this was a full-fledged, everyone in marketing had their hands on this ABM campaign. And I feel like it was a great campaign. Third, Tactile Piece is huge for breaking through to these top accounts, especially in the enterprise. Once again, these high-level executives are getting bombarded, and it's really hard to get through to them. So really, hats off to PFL and providing easier ways and more scalable ways to deliver tactile pieces. Next is leverage executives to help your AEs get in the door. Like I said, CEO, CRO, CFO, whoever you have at your organization, their network is huge, and also it means a lot more to that when you're sending to those different personas to get a personal note from the CEO or CRO. And lastly, you can never over-communicate to your sales team. I think the most difficult part of ABM, and probably a lot of listeners will probably experience the same thing, is you put together this amazing campaign, but does your sales team really know what's going on throughout the span of the campaign? And especially when you're putting together triggered ABM campaigns that are always running. And there's a lot of amazing tools out there to help scale this and to give communication to your sales team. But what we did is we had an email that we'd send out every day and say, hey, this is where we are at in the campaign. This is what's coming up next week. All right, this is the email going out. This is the tactile piece going out. Put it on. We use Salesforce. We put on Shatter. We just overshared. I walked around, and a lot of our AEs are all spread across the country, so I couldn't, go knock on their tap on the shoulder. But I did everything I could to communicate to them, and so that throughout the process, they knew exactly what was happening. And with that being said, I will turn the time back over to Janet.
Thanks very much. I appreciate it, TJ. Wonderful, great insights. Thanks very much for sharing all those details of your campaign. I think there was some great learning in there for folks. We are now to the time for questions. I have a couple questions already here. I'll go through those, but if anybody else has questions, please feel free to type them into the chat. So we'll get started. The first question is, do you believe the popularity of ABM is because C-level prospects are receiving an enormous amount of useless junk? Do you believe that the direct mail gives something that it should be something that's useful? And do you believe that a football would be the right gift if your prospect was female, for example? So a number of questions in one.
Daniel, do you want to cover the first half of it and I can cover the second half?
Yeah, that sounds great. So on the popularity of ABM getting C-level prospects, lots of junk. I don't think ABM is necessarily increasing that. C-level executives have always got lots of junk. They're heavily targeted, and that's why our email inboxes as a C-level executive are super full. And if you talk to, it's why they're hard to get a hold of, is because they kind of already have that guard up. So they might be seeing some increase of getting stuff. What they haven't seen before, and what I think is driving the change with ABM and is targeting C-level executives, is that one, it's a coordinated approach across the organization. And if you look at the decision-making process in most organizations, we shouldn't just be targeting that C-level executive. So I think that the tactile send throughout the organizations, there's been some more frequency of that being done to different players, because now we have the technology to scale that through using Marketo and apps like PFL to help execute those campaigns, and more importantly, controlling that multi-channel across the organization. In terms of how the other component of like what we should send, and just on the terms of trinkets and strategy, I think TJ touched on this in what he was talking about. Between why they chose the football gift, and it was highly targeted towards certain prospects, is thinking about what resonates with those people. But also, no matter what you send, you have to deliver value, because we're still looking at this, particularly in the B2B environment, looking at the business context, right? So the gift, the package, all that is just buying you a few moments of attention. And with that attention, it's what you do with it. Do you get your message and point across to help take them to the next level? And I'll let TJ tackle the last question on if the football was a good gift for female prospects.
Yeah. Ironically, we actually had a lot of good success with female prospects with football. My wife, she's a huge college football fan, and I think a lot of the accounts that we targeted were luckily in the Bay Area, so Steve Young football resonated really well. But that is a good point. I think that goes back to what Daniel was saying, if you feel like that would be an issue in the campaign that you're doing, is sending content or direct mail pieces to not the persona of their job title, but the kind of things that they're interested in. We tried to keep it simple for this round, and I think we're actually going to rerun this campaign, and we're obviously making some changes, some learnings that we had. But I think you're not going to win everyone over. That's we had a few people just be like, why are you sending me football? That's the reality of when you're sent to these different campaigns. But I think if it ties to the campaign, I think you'll be good.
Great. We're getting lots of good questions here and fairly complex ones. The next one is around sort of size of your campaign. So the question is, how do you determine which organizations you'll be targeting? What if, for example, there are 1,000 companies that fit your target profile in that specific industry? And what kind of process would you use to sort of focus on a very select number of organizations?
Daniel, I can take this. No, you go ahead. Go ahead.
I think of it as a crawl, walk, run, right? And so first on determining what organization we're targeting, think about where you've had previous success and find like organizations there that are a good product market fit you should be targeting. And then in terms of if there's a ton of companies on that list, really looking at what can you organizationally execute on from an account-based marketing approach or in an account-based sales or account-based everything approach through your organization. And that's one of the things with our internal ABM campaigns that we're really sensitive on is when we let the sales team drive a lot of it by understanding where their pipe is, and trying to be proactive with that. So we can execute that campaign across all channels and have a good flow. So it comes down to organizational capacity on the number of people you should target. And the process of focusing on a select number of organizations is just that. It's really thinning it down. I think TJ talked a little bit about how they worked with their sales team to really look at which accounts they thought were going to be the best fits for their campaign as well. And so just take it one step at a time and ease into your ABM campaign.
Yeah, and I was just going to say, I mean, when we launched this ABM campaign, the AEs got really excited and they started sending over every account they could find, and the number of accounts that they wanted to go after started to get out of control. And so that's why I think it's important to, for us it came down to budget. And we also, we believe in testing very heavily at Inside Sales. We want to prove everything out before we scale it and, crawl, walk, run. And that's exactly what we did at this one. And we basically said to every AE, hey, you have X amount of accounts, and you pick your best accounts for this particular campaign. And now that we know what has worked, we've integrated some other tools to kind of help us say, this is the likelihood to close for this account is higher than this one, so we'll pick this account over that account. But I think that's kind of the idea with these ABM campaigns. When you first launch one, if it's a full-scale ABM campaign, do a pretty small targeted group, and once you prove it out, then you can open the aperture because typically most companies, if you can prove the ROI, they're going to give you more budget to send to as many that will close. So.
Great. And speaking of budget, TJ, I don't know how much you're able to share, but there was a question around getting an idea of the budget in terms of how much did it cost to ship the football, the direct mail piece, total cost per lead, any volume, are there volume breaks? So again, not sure how much you're able to share, but if you could give the audience some suggestions,
sure.
that would be great.
Yeah, I mean, I can share the budget as far as of the cost of each football. We were at about, after being shipped, and ours cost a little bit more because we got the footballs, we shipped it to Steve Young, and they were gracious enough to sign the footballs and then ship them back. And so we incurred a little more cost than your typical direct mail piece. But we were at about, I think, about $80 a unit after being shipped, $80 to $100 a unit. And that's why with that particular tactile piece, we one per account was kind of the rule of thumb. And that's one thing with PFL, which is great, is they are very clear on budget, and they give you line item after line item of like, this is how much it costs to ship, this is how much it costs to process, so on and so forth. And so it just kind of comes down to what your budget would be. But we actually ended up coming under budget. We actually had the end of the campaign, we were going to do, it was all going to culminate into these dinners. That's one play at Inside Sales that we do a lot, is we put together these high-touch dinners for 10 to 20 individuals, or we'll bring out execs, and they work really, really well in the enterprise. But this campaign ended up getting pretty close to Dreamforce, and so we decided to, you know what, we're going to be inviting all these folks to meet with us at Dreamforce anyways, so let's take that out. So we actually ended up coming out pretty significantly under budget. But I'm not going to name names, but the tactile piece actually wasn't the most expensive for us. There was other channels that we tested and tried that's actually more expensive that we might not do in the future because we didn't really see the return on investment. So that's what's awesome about, I think, great about the direct mail piece, is it's really easy to see, if it worked or not.
Yeah, I'll just add to that. There's obviously a wide variance of what you can spend on the piece, but and I understand budgets are an important component of what you can work with initially, but ultimately as marketers, let's focus on what's the return we can drive from those channels. And kudos to you, TJ, for testing those out and identifying your most effective channels.
Great. Some great learnings, and congratulations on coming in under budget.
Yeah.
The next question is about, do you have any concern about direct mail becoming overused as part of ABM? It's been lots of talk about it in ABM programs, do you have any concerns that then, maybe this is more for you, Daniel, that direct mail just becomes yet another source of noise and becomes less effective? And are there any other channels that should be considered in that?
Yeah, first I'll say I think it's, it's not just about direct mail. It's about how do we leverage more channels, because that's, direct mail is a component of that. Engage, as TJ Nokleby said at the Marketo Summit a few years ago, engage everywhere and engage how our customers want to engage with us. And so if direct mail is a channel that fits in well, that's great. But we should be looking across how do we communicate with people across all channels. And using those different channels is what's really going to drive the results. As far as the concern of does it become overused, one of my favorite things about direct mail is it makes myself, my team, all of us better marketers, because we have to think there is a hard line item and a cost per contact we have with someone, and so we need to do better with that. And so there's a little bit of barrier entry, and people who are not delivering value, not delivering good calls to actions and that sort of thing, won't be as effective with direct mail, and therefore their cost goes up significantly, their ROI goes down. So as it's not just about having that piece, it's about delivering value and more effectively communicating with our customers. It's just another channel to get that engagement. So I think we could see some increase. I really think we're going to see an uptick. Direct mail numbers are down significantly from where they have been in years past. If we go back 10, 15 years ago, when it was a primary communication channel. And so I think there's still a good opportunity, and it's got a long ways to go before it gets as cluttered as some of our digital inboxes. One other thing on additional channels, and we use the PFL in our ABM campaigns and our nurture campaigns, is using AdBridge from Marketo. Display is an important part of it, and by adding a display to our ABM campaigns, we've improved our response, in addition to having the tactile and email component. So that's a great channel. Events, as TJ mentioned, I think are a very valuable channel. We've had great success with that as well, doing dinners, doing customer or prospect meetings as part of the ABM campaign, so in person, or telesales, having a executive or a salesperson or some thought leadership action that you can use as a channel as part of your ABM campaign.
Okay. Thanks for a very complete answer, Daniel.
And if I could just add on to that,
yeah.
I think it comes down to the content as well. I mean, one thing that I really enjoyed working with PFL is we asked them what other clients were doing. And obviously they didn't give us like specific client names, but we learned what other people were doing, and we have this saying at Inside Sales, we zig when other people zag. And so the idea is like, well, if tons of people are sending this particular mail piece, I'm going to change it up, do something different, because that would be the worst thing, right, is, they send out a, Amazon Echo, and then you send an Amazon Echo the next week or something like that. And so I think it all comes down to, I mean, with email, I'm sure everyone, you'll have a certain piece of content that does terrible, or it used to do well, but it's not doing as well, and then you come up with a new piece of content and it kills it, because the content's good. So, I don't think direct mail, especially because of the cost involved, it's way easier to just send emails. I don't think it's going to become junk mail unless you're sending them junk, I guess is my point.
Good point. All right, we have time for just a few more questions. TJ, I think this one's for you. What was your biggest learning from the campaign?
I would say my biggest learning would really be the value of going after these accounts in so many different channels. I think that we do that, as marketers, we really try to, do a surround sound type of campaign, but it was really interesting to see, how the tactile piece, of course, opened the door, but how that follow-up email or that specific ebook, or we had this quiz, this forecasting quiz that we did, and it really, and the social and everything, I just think it's so important. The accounts that we went after, like, they just couldn't get away from us, and so I think there's so much power in that. Obviously, you don't want to be annoying, but depending on your company and what stage you're at, if you're really trying to get your name out there, I mean, it's so powerful to to be able to use all these different channels, and direct mail, being the kind of the crux of our campaign. I was just shocked. I mean, because I think whenever you launch a campaign, there's always the pessimist in you, like, is this going to work? And so I really hope so. We got Steve Young to sign these footballs, and but it did, and so I think that was my biggest learning.
Great. Thanks for sharing that. Here's a question that's around what you might have done differently if you were versus higher and enterprise if you were going to mid-market. Were there any things that, if you thought about it, you might have changed to do a little bit differently?
I would say, I mean, depending on your budget, I mean, when you go after more mid-market, I think a lot of the plays that you would want to do is some that PFL have suggested. Like there's this Amazon Echo play where you'll send a box and you'll say, hey, I'd love to get a meeting with you. If you come to a meeting, I'll give you the the Amazon Echo, those kinds of things. I think it just depends on your budget. However, I think for this particular campaign, it'll work anywhere because I think that particular piece worked well. But I think when you get down to the more mid-market is where these different tactile pieces, you're trying to tie it to your campaign, but you're giving them stuff that they want, and that will really get their attention. And so I think that's how we would do it differently. We're actually getting ready to expand this campaign, and not every single we're going to be sending less of more expensive tactile pieces in the mid-market as we would for enterprise. And also it comes down to what's going to be your ROI, right? You can spend X amount on that contact at an enterprise account because if that closes, the returns are much higher than a smaller company. So I think it's just learning how to scale it, and what we kind of like what we're doing is we kind of have our enterprise version, our mid-market, upper mid-market version, and our mid-market version. For us, we're not really doing too much tactile pieces for SMB. It's not worth it to us right now, but it definitely could change in the future.
Okay, great. I think we have time for one more question here. This question was sort of a more general question. If your company has not yet implemented an automation platform, would you recommend the kind of approach that you have with a combination of Marketo and, for example, PFL?
Daniel, I'll let you take this one.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think one of the challenges that with ABM and why ABM, we call it account-based marketing now. It's been around for a long time, right? We just called it target marketing, target account marketing, or target accounts prior. But the reason there's a big movement towards it now is, one, we have some data around how effective it can be, and two, the technology has caught up to make it so we can execute on it in a scalable way. So if you're going small, you can definitely execute on it through spreadsheets and doing it manually without a marketing automation platform. But to do account-based marketing, right, where you have behavioral sends, you're using the personalization, and you also have it multi-channel across different communication channels, from email to direct mail to display and all of that, to do that without a platform like Marketo or some sort of automation platform, it's really, really hard. So it's not impossible, it's just a lot harder. So the technology makes it easier today, both from an execution standpoint and then also from a measurement standpoint, to make your campaigns truly smart. One of the things that we see a lot of our clients doing is they'll have a multi-touch campaign, but they don't send a lot of the expensive touches, because if someone responds and is engaged and is moving through the process prior to sending a meeting maker or sending an expensive touch, they can take them out of the campaign. So automation adds a lot of benefit to making it more scalable and effective.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much, Daniel and TJ, for speaking with us today. It has been fabulous. As a reminder to all attendees, the slides and presentation will be sent to everyone later today. And be sure to go to launchpoint.com if you'd like to learn more about our fabulous LaunchPoint partner, PFL. Thank you for joining us today, and have a wonderful day.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.